let's dive into an idea that is, frankly, pretty startling. It's a proposal that feels very modern, very 21st century, but what if I told you it's actually just an echo, a powerful echo, from a deep, defining conflict in American history? So it all starts right here, with this statement from January 2026. The idea is to create a permanent labor class in America, a group of people who would work here but would be intentionally, systematically shut out from the rights of citizenship, specifically the right to vote. Basically, you'd have workers without a voice.
So you hear that and you think, wow, that's a pretty radical idea. But is it really new? Or have we heard this exact same argument before, echoing up from one of the most divisive times in this country's past? Well, that's the question we're going to dig into.
And to find the answer, we have to turn back the clock, way back. We're going to the 1850s to talk about something called the Mudsill theory. Here it is. This is the origin story. Picture it. 1858. Senator James Henry Hammond of South Carolina stands up in the U.S. Senate and lays out his vision for society. And it's a stark one. He argues that for any great civilization to even exist, it needs a permanent underclass to do all the hard, dirty, undesirable work. He called this group the Mudsill, like the heavy wooden beams that you drive deep into the mud to hold up a house. He saw society the same way. This class of people would be the foundation, and on top of them, the refined upper class could get on with the important business of progress and civilization. And the most crucial part of this whole theory, this Mudsill class was to have absolutely no political power. Sounding a little familiar? Now, this wasn't just some intellectual debate club. Oh, no. This was a battle for the very soul of America. It was two completely, fundamentally opposed visions for the country going head-to-head. This chart just lays out the conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got Hammond's Mudsill theory, a rigid, permanent caste system. If you're born a laborer, you die a laborer. The wealthy elites are in charge, and that's just the way it is. But on the other side, you've got the free labor theory, championed by a rising political star you may have heard of, a guy named Abraham Lincoln. And Lincoln's vision, it was the polar opposite. He talked about a dynamic society where your hard work, not your family name, determines where you end up. He painted this picture of the penniless beginner, someone who starts with nothing, works for wages, saves up, buys their own tools or land, and maybe eventually becomes successful enough to hire another new beginner. It's a vision of social mobility, not permanent subjugation. So, what happens when a powerful group of people truly believes they're the natural ruling class, that they sit at the top of the pyramid by right? What does that worldview actually look like in practice? Well, often it leads to the belief that you are simply above the law. And this worldview isn't just an idea. It shapes behavior in some really dark ways. Hammond himself acted with shocking impunity, assaulting his own young nieces. And we see echoes of that same entitlement today, don't we? From the powerful men in the Epstein files who seem to operate without any fear of consequences, to the suggestion that a president could just settle a massive $10 billion lawsuit with himself. The core belief is the same. The rules that apply to everyone else, they don't apply to us. It creates a sense of being totally untouchable. And this sense of being above the law can scale up from the personal to the state itself. When a government starts to see some of its own citizens not as constituents to be heard, but as obstacles to be controlled, you get scenes like this. Federal agents using chemical weapons on peaceful marchers, on families, on union members. This powerful condemnation from a U.S. district judge really captures the ultimate danger here. He talks about a lust for unbridled power, so strong that basic human decency and even the rule of law are just tossed aside. But that is not the end of the story. Because just like back in the 1850s, when people are told they are a permanent underclass with no voice, they often find a way to make their voices heard, loud and clear. So let's take a look at a recent special election for a Texas state Senate seat. This was in a district that was considered a total lock for one party, a sure thing. But then something completely unexpected happened. And these numbers, wow, they just brilliantly illustrate the sheer scale of the rejection. A district that was won by one party by 17 points in 2024 flips completely, swinging an incredible 32 points in the other direction just 2 years later. That's not just a small shift. That is a political earthquake. And here's the kicker. The winning campaign was outspent by a massive margin. We're talking over $2 million. The establishment-backed candidate had all the money, all the endorsements from the governor and the president. They had all the power. And it didn't matter. The voters chose differently.
So this brings us right back to where we started. This clash between two visions, one of a permanent hierarchy, the other of democratic equality, it's not new at all. You could argue it is the central conflict in American history, from Lincoln versus Hammond all the way to today. The question that's left is, what comes next? And who gets to write that chapter?